At 3:47 in the morning, a single father holding a night shift flashlight stood between a frightened young woman and the men hired to destroy her. He had no weapon. He had no backup. He had a 6-year-old daughter asleep across town, and he had exactly 43 seconds to decide whether to walk away from the one person who had ever looked at him like he mattered, or risk losing the only family he had left. If you want to know how a tired man with nothing became the reason a billion-dollar empire collapsed in a single night, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far this story travels tonight. The coffee in the break room pot had been sitting there since yesterday's day shift, and Logan Reed knew it, and he poured himself a cup anyway. It was 3 minutes past 6 in the morning. The fluorescent tube above the sink had been flickering for 9 days. He had mentioned it twice to building maintenance, filed a work order once, and given up. The light would get fixed when something bigger broke, which, in a 52-story office tower on the east side of a city that had forgotten it was supposed to care, meant never. He took the coffee out to the security desk in the lobby and set it next to the monitor bank. 16 feeds. Loading dock, 4 stairwells, 3 elevator banks, parking levels B1 through B4, the service corridor behind the mailroom, the rooftop access door, and the lobby itself, which he could also see by turning his head about 30 degrees to the left. There was a kind of joke in that, watching yourself on a screen while you sat right there. Logan had stopped finding it funny about 2 years ago. He was 32 years old. His back hurt in a specific place just above his left hip, the kind of ache that came from standing 11 hours on marble floors with shoes that had been good shoes when he bought them and were now just shoes. His left knee clicked when he stood up from the swivel chair. He had a tension headache that lived behind his right eye and came out whenever he thought about money, which was most of the time. His daughter was named Maddie. She was 6. She had his dead wife's mouth and her own opinions about breakfast cereal. And she was, at this exact moment, still asleep in a 4th-floor walk-up apartment 3 subway stops away, being watched over by Mrs. Delgado from across the hall, who charged him $80 a week to sleep on his couch from 10 at night until 7 in the morning, and who sometimes, on her good days, made Maddie pancakes. Logan would be home by 7:40. He would kiss Maddie on the top of her head, thank Mrs. Delgado, walk her to the door, and then he would pack Maddie's lunch and walk her to kindergarten and come back and sleep from 9 until 2. Then he would get up and be a father for 4 hours, and then Mrs. Delgado would come back over and he would ride the subway downtown and do it again. That was the shape of his life. It wasn't a shape he had picked. It was a shape that had been pressed into him by circumstance, the way a coin leaves its imprint on soft wax, and he had stopped questioning whether there was some other shape he was supposed to be. He sipped the coffee. It tasted like a penny. The front doors of the building slid open at 6:11, which was early for anyone who wasn't him or the cleaning crew, and a woman walked in. She was carrying a duffel bag. Logan noticed 3 things at once, in the order a man who had done this job for 6 years notices things. First, she was moving too fast for 6 in the morning. Second, she kept glancing back over her shoulder at the revolving door, not at the revolving door itself, but through it, at the street. Third, she wasn't dressed for an office. She wore jeans that had been expensive once, and a black hooded sweatshirt and running shoes, and her dark hair was pulled back so tight it looked like it hurt. She was maybe 5'6", mid-20s, pale under the fluorescent lobby lights in a way that Logan thought might be exhaustion, and might also be something else. Her eyes were the thing he remembered later. They were very dark and very awake, and they moved across the lobby like she was cataloging exits. She came straight to his desk. "Are you the morning guy?" she asked. "I'm the guy," Logan said. "Depending on what you need. I need to know where the freight elevator is." He set the coffee down. "You got a move-in scheduled?" "I have a key." She held it up. It was a top-floor key. He could tell from the notching. "I have a lease. It was emailed last night. The movers are coming at 7, and I wanted to be up there first. Name? Vale. Aria Vale." He typed it into the system, which was called Building Pro 4.2 and had been installed in 2017 and had never, in Logan's experience, worked quickly. The spinning wheel spun. She watched the monitor behind him, which was showing the loading dock, not her face. Her hands were inside the front pocket of her sweatshirt, and Logan could see the shape of them moving, not nervous exactly, thinking. 5202, he read off the screen. Northlight Analytics. That's me. Freight's through there. He pointed to a corridor past the main elevators. I'll need to badge you through the first time. After that, the system will know you. Thank you. She waited while he printed her a temporary lanyard, and he used those 11 seconds to look at her without looking at her. A small thing on her neck, a half-inch above the collar of her sweatshirt. Not a scratch. A bruise. Yellow at the edges, so it was a few days old. The kind of bruise a person got from a hand, not a fall. He handed her the lanyard. Anything I should know? He asked. She looked up at him. Later, he would try to describe to himself what passed between them in that second, and he would never quite get it right. It wasn't flirtation. He was too tired for flirtation. It wasn't gratitude either, or relief, or any of the simple things. It was something more like recognition, the way two people who have been up all night in completely separate rooms will look at each other in the morning and know, without a word, that neither of them slept. I'm quiet, she said. I work alone. If anyone comes asking for me by name, anyone at all, even if they have credentials, even if they're polite, I'd appreciate it if you told me first before you told them anything. That's not standard. I know. I can't lie to law enforcement. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to tell me before you tell them. That's all. He considered her. He considered the bruise. He considered the way she had glanced back through the revolving door. Okay, he said. She nodded once, businesslike, and walked toward the freight elevator, and the duffel bag swung heavy against her leg, and Logan watched her go on 2 monitors at once until she disappeared into the car and the doors closed. Then he sat down and drank his bad coffee and told himself it wasn't his problem. He told himself that for the next 3 weeks. It didn't take. The first week he barely saw her. She came in before he left in the morning and went up, and she was still up there when he came back on at 8 at night, which he knew because the access log showed she'd never badged out. On Tuesday night of her first week, around 2 in the morning, he went up to 52 on a routine sweep and heard music through the door of 5202. Not loud. Something with a piano in it, something old. He knocked, because protocol said knock on any floor with after-hours activity, and she opened the door about 4 inches, and he could see past her shoulder to a desk stacked with 3 monitors and a whiteboard so covered in equations it looked painted. Everything okay? He said. Everything's fine. Just checking. Fire code requires me to ask. I know the fire code. I'm fine. She shut the door. He walked back to the elevator thinking, she knows the fire code. Most people don't know the fire code. The second week, a man came in. It was 10 after 9 at night, and the lobby was empty except for the cleaner, Jorge, who was running the floor buffer by the elevator bank. The man came through the revolving door and walked to Logan's desk and put both hands flat on the counter in a way that was not aggressive exactly, but was deliberate. The way someone puts down a chess piece when they want you to know they've made a move. He was in his 40s. Expensive suit, no tie, black overcoat, which was the kind of overcoat men wore when they wanted you to think of them as the sort of men who wore overcoats. His face was unremarkable, except for the eyes, which were the same dark kind of awake that Area Vale's had been, except his version of awake was looking for something, and hers had been avoiding it. Good evening, he said. I'm here to see Ms. Vale, 5202. Is she expecting you? She's expecting my firm. I need a name for the log. The man smiled, and the smile did not touch his eyes. Colin Prentice, with Halverson Dre. Logan had never heard of Halverson Dre. Logan typed the name into the visitor log and said, "One moment, sir. I'll call up." "That won't be necessary." "Building policy, sir." "She's expecting me." "Then it'll be a short call." Logan picked up the handset and dialed 5202 and let it ring. It rang 4 times. On the 5th ring, Arya picked up. "Yes. Ms. Vale, I have a Colin Prentice here from Halverson Dre for you." There was a silence on the line that lasted about 2 full seconds, and in those 2 seconds, Logan watched Colin Prentice's face. The man was listening, not looking, listening, leaning his head slightly toward the desk, the way a dog leans toward a sound it's trying to place. "Tell him I'm not in," Arya said. "Ma'am, he's standing at my desk." "I know he's standing at your desk. Tell him I'm not in. Tell him I'll be in touch through counsel. Thank you." She hung up. Logan put the phone down and looked at Colin Prentice and said, "Ms. Vale isn't available this evening. She said she'd be in touch through her attorney." Colin Prentice didn't move for a moment. Then he nodded, slow and thoughtful, the way a man nods when he's adjusting a plan in his head. "That's a shame," he said. "She's going to want to take the meeting sooner rather than later. Could you let her know I stopped by?" "The log will show you stopped by." "Yes," Prentice said. "I suppose it will." He straightened his coat. "You have a good evening. What was your name?" "Reed." "Reed." He said it like he was filing it. "Have a good evening, Mr. Reed." He walked back out through the revolving door and into the street, and Logan watched him on the external camera turn left and walk to a black car that was parked in a loading zone where no car should have been parked. And a driver got out and opened the rear door for him, and the car pulled away into the uptown traffic and was gone. Logan picked up the phone and dialed 5202. Arya picked up on the first ring this time. "He's gone," Logan said. "Thank you." "Ms. Vale." That man knew I wasn't going to put him through. He wanted to be here. He wanted to stand at my desk and hear your voice coming out of my phone. Another silence. "I know," she said. "You want to tell me what this is?" "No." "All right." "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed." She hung up a second time, and Logan stood at the desk for a long moment with his hand still on the phone, and then he did something he had not done since his second year on this job. He opened the System Admin panel on Building Pro 4.2 and pulled the full 24-hour access log for the 52nd floor. And he read it. And when he was done reading it, he read it again because the first time he had not believed what he was seeing. In the last 14 days, Arya Vale had badged into 5202 a total of 91 times. 91. She left for food and came back. She left for a walk and came back. Once, at 4:11 in the morning, she had badged out, and the lobby camera showed her going to the all-night deli on the corner, and she had come back in 11 minutes with a paper bag, and in those 11 minutes, Logan scrolled, in those 11 minutes, someone else had badged into 5202, someone whose credential read Service, Elevated Access. There was no name attached to that credential. There was no such credential in the building's issued badge registry. Logan checked. He pulled up the master list. He cross-referenced. The credential did not exist, and yet it had opened her door at 4:16 in the morning and closed it at 4:19, and the person holding it had been inside 5202 for 3 minutes and 12 seconds, and Arya Vale had come back up on the elevator at 4:22 and gone into her office and, if the logs were to be believed, done nothing differently. She didn't know. Logan sat in his swivel chair and thought about that for a long time. He thought about it while he made his rounds. He thought about it while he walked the third-floor corridor, and the 18th, and the 39th. And he was still thinking about it when he got back to the desk at 12:45 and saw that the lobby camera had, for 7 seconds between 12:38 and 12:39, shown a frozen frame instead of live feed. Just one camera, just the external-facing lobby cam that showed the sidewalk out front. 7 seconds of still image, and then the live feed resumed. A man with 6 years on this job knew what that looked like. Someone had spoofed the cam. He ran the diagnostics. He ran them again. The system reported no fault. According to Building Pro 4.2, nothing had happened at 12:38. Logan leaned back in the chair and rubbed the place above his right eye where the headache lived, and he thought about his daughter, asleep 3 subway stops away, and he thought about Mrs. Delgado on his couch, and he thought about the $80 a week and the back rent, and the fact that this job paid his bills and his daughter's doctor and the after-school program, and that if he lost it, he did not know what he would do. And then he thought about Arya Vale's bruised neck, and the man with the overcoat, and the phantom credential that had opened her door while she went out for a sandwich. He pulled out his phone. He took a picture of the access log. He took a picture of the phantom credential entry. He took a picture of the camera timestamp showing the 7-second freeze. He emailed all 3 pictures to his personal Gmail, and then he deleted them from his sent folder on the work phone, which any man who had worked in a building like this for 6 years knew how to do. And then he sat back and waited for morning. Up. At 7:52, as Arya Vale came off the elevator with her hair pulled back and circles under her eyes so dark they looked painted on, Logan caught her arm. He had never touched her before. He had barely spoken to her. He knew, the instant his hand closed on her sleeve, that he was crossing a line that could not be uncrossed, and he did it anyway. I need 2 minutes, he said. She looked down at his hand on her arm. She looked back up at his face. Something in her eyes shifted, and for the first time since she had walked into the lobby 3 weeks ago, he saw her afraid. Not here, she said. Where? The stairwell, the one between floors 2 and 3. There's no camera in the landing. He knew there was no camera in that landing. He had walked that stairwell 1,000 times. She had been in the building 3 weeks, and she already knew. They met there 4 minutes later. She came down, he came up. The stairwell was cold and smelled like concrete and old paint, and her voice, when it came out, was lower than he had heard it before, and steadier. What do you know? She said. Not enough, but I know someone has a credential to your office that doesn't exist in the system. I know they used it at 4:16 this morning while you were out. I know the lobby cam got spoofed for 7 seconds last night. And I know the man who came in here, Prentice, I don't know who he is, but I know he stood at my desk just to hear your voice. Her face didn't change. That was the thing that struck him. She didn't gasp. She didn't put her hand to her mouth. She just absorbed each sentence like a boxer taking body shots. And when he was done, she nodded once, almost to herself. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, now I know the shape of it. Ms. Vale, Arya. Arya. I have a daughter. Her eyes came up sharp. How old? 6. Does she come here? Never. Does anyone at this building know you have her? Payroll has her on my benefits. Anyone with access to HR could find out in 10 minutes. Arya closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something in her face that Logan had not seen before and would not forget. It was guilt, raw and simple and adult, the guilt of a person who understood exactly how much damage her presence could do to someone else and had no ability to undo it. You should quit, she said. What? Quit this job, today. Tell the building manager you got a better offer. Walk out the door and don't look back. Don't give notice. Go home to your daughter and pretend you never met me. I can't quit. You can. You should. I have $1,100 in a checking account and a daughter in kindergarten and a landlord who raised my rent 2 months ago. I can't quit. What I can do, and here his voice went somewhere he hadn't planned, is tell you what I saw and ask you to tell me what I'm standing in the middle of. She studied him. It was the longest anyone had looked at Logan Reed in a long time. Since his wife died, probably. Mrs. Delgado looked through him. His daughter looked at the top of his head because she was short. His supervisors looked at their clipboards. This woman, in the cold stairwell at 8 in the morning, looked at his face like she was reading a document she didn't want to sign. I built something, Arya said finally. 6 years ago. I was 20. I was in a master's program I couldn't afford, and I had an idea, and I wrote it down, and I built a prototype, and I filed for the patents myself because I didn't trust anyone else to do it. It's a compression architecture. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that it does. In about 9 lines of code, what an entire industry spends $800 million a year trying and failing to do. And that industry is owned by 3 companies. And those 3 companies have decided that rather than license it from me, or buy it from me, or compete with it fairly, they would prefer to own me. Or failing that, own what I've built, by any means available. Prentice. Colin Prentice is the outside counsel for a firm called Halverson Dre, which exists for the sole purpose of making people like me sign contracts they shouldn't sign. He is very good at it. They have been escalating for about 5 months. First it was an offer, then a better offer, then a threat dressed up as an offer, then a lawsuit I didn't know existed, filed in a jurisdiction I've never been to. Then my apartment got broken into. Nothing was stolen. My laptop was moved 6 inches to the left on my desk. That was when I left the city I was living in and came here. And they found you. They found me in 9 days. Logan absorbed that. 9 days. She had thought she had a refuge, and she had gotten 9 days out of it. The credential, he said. Somebody's already in. Yes. They've been in your office. Yes. I assumed. I have countermeasures. I don't keep anything on the physical drives. Everything lives encrypted off-site, and what's on the whiteboard is a decoy. But I assumed. Why did you stay? She looked at him. Where else is there to go? She said, and it wasn't a question. They stood there in the concrete stairwell for a moment, and somewhere 2 floors up, a pipe ticked as the heat came on. "There's going to be a meeting," Arya said. "What meeting?" "The one Prentice came to set up. I haven't been invited yet. I will be in the next 72 hours. It will be presented as a negotiation. It won't be a negotiation. It will be the last polite conversation before they stop being polite. Don't go?" "If I don't go, they come to me. And if they come to me, they come to the building. And the building has you in it. And you have a daughter." He saw then where she was going, and he saw it before she said it, and he hated that he saw it. "So I go," she said. "I go to their meeting, at their location, at their time, because that is the only way to keep the fight on their ground instead of mine. And while I'm there, you do exactly one thing for me, Mr. Reed, and then we never speak again." "What thing?" "You hold on to what you found. The credential log, the camera spoof. Everything you emailed yourself last night. Yes, I assume you emailed it to yourself. You'd be an idiot not to. And you are not an idiot. You hold on to it. You don't send it to anyone. You don't show it to anyone. You don't breathe a word of it to the building manager, or to the police, or to your neighbor with the pancakes. You put it somewhere, and you leave it there, and you forget my name. And when you're in the meeting, then I'll handle it." "How?" "That's not your problem." "Arya." "That's not your problem, Mr. Reed." "Logan." She looked at him. "Logan," she said, quieter. "Please." He thought about his daughter. He thought about Maddie's small hand in his, walking to kindergarten, and the way she pulled on his sleeve when she had something important to say, and the way she said goodnight by pressing her forehead against his for exactly 1 second, no more and no less, because that was her rule. He thought about the $1,100 in his checking account. He thought about the bruise on Arya Vale's neck, which he now understood was not from a hand at all, but from a shoulder strap, from running with a bag too heavy, from carrying her entire life on her back for 9 days across some number of states. "I can't do that," he said. "Logan, I can't do that, Arya. I'm sorry. I wish I could. A week ago I could have. Tonight, standing here, I can't, because if I walk away from this and something happens to you in that meeting, I'll know. And I already have one thing I know. I don't need another." She didn't ask what the one thing was. He was glad. He didn't want to say his wife's name in that stairwell. "So what?" she said. "So what do you propose? You going to storm the meeting, Mr. Reed? You going to save me?" "No. You're going to save yourself. You said it. You're smart enough to save yourself. But I'm going to make sure you have what you need to do it." "And what does that look like?" "I don't know yet. But I have 4 days before my next day off, and I have a friend in the building systems office who owes me a favor from 2022, and I have a brain that has been falling asleep at this desk for 6 years and is now, apparently, awake. So give me until the meeting is set. Give me that much. And in the meantime," he paused, "in the meantime, don't go anywhere alone. Not the deli, not the street. You stay on 52 and I stay down here. And if anything at all on your door or your monitors or your phone does anything you don't expect, you call the desk and you say the word coffee, and I come up. Matsas shati, coffee, coffee." She looked at him for a very long time. "You are going to get yourself killed," she said, "and I am going to spend the rest of my life knowing it." "Probably not," he said. "I'm not important enough to kill." That is the single most naive thing a person has ever said to me. "Yeah," he said, "that tracks." He held out his hand. She looked at it. Then she took it briefly, one short hard shake, and let go, and went back up the stairs. He went down. At the desk, the morning guy had arrived, a kid named Bevan who was 23 and wanted to be a cop. Logan did his handoff in the ordinary way. He signed out of the system. He put his lanyard in the drawer. He walked out through the revolving door into the gray October morning, and the cold air hit his face, and he stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking up at the building he had just left, all 52 floors of it. And he thought about the woman on the top floor who had just told him to forget her name. Then he walked to the subway. On the train, he sat with his coffee cup empty in his hands and looked at nothing, and his phone buzzed once, and he took it out. It was a text from an unknown number. It said, 52nd floor conference room, 3 p.m. Thursday. They want me to come alone. He read it twice. Thursday was 3 days away. He typed back, understood. The train rocked him gently toward home, and Logan Reed, who had spent 6 years being tired, realized with something close to surprise that he was not tired anymore. He was awake. For the first time in a long time, he was awake. When he got off at his stop and walked up the stairs into the weak morning sun, he could hear, 2 blocks away, a kid's laugh, and he told himself it wasn't Maddie, and then he got closer and it was. She had run out ahead of Mrs. Delgado on the way to the corner store, and when she saw him, she shouted, "Dad!" with both syllables, the way she always did, and she ran at him full speed, and he caught her, and he held her against his chest. And over the top of her head, he looked down the street at the city that had just 3 hours ago stopped being a place where he was only tired. He set her down. "How was work?" she said. "Quiet," he said. "Are you going to sleep?" "In a minute, honey." "Dad." "Yeah." "You have your serious face on." He looked down at her. 6 years old, her mother's mouth, her own opinions, and apparently her own sense of when something had changed in him that she couldn't name. "I have some thinking to do today, Mads." "Is it bad thinking or good thinking?" He considered the question. "I don't know yet," he said. She accepted that because she was 6 and because her father had never lied to her, and she took his hand, and they walked the rest of the way home together, and 3 subway stops away, on the 52nd floor of a building with a phantom credential on its access log, a woman named Aria Vale sat at a desk stacked with 3 monitors and tried to figure out how the hell she was going to survive Thursday at 3 in the afternoon. He slept from 9:15 until 1:40, which was shorter than usual, and when he woke up, the ceiling of his bedroom was doing the things ceilings do when a person has fallen asleep with a problem, and the problem has been working in the dark while the person rested. He lay there for a minute without moving and let the shape of it come back to him. Phantom credential. 7-second camera freeze. Thursday at 3. Daughter in kindergarten. $1,100. He sat up. His left knee clicked. He pulled on a t-shirt and walked to the kitchen and stood at the counter with his hands flat on the formica and tried to think the way a man thinks when he has a plan and not the way a man thinks when he is making one up. He didn't have a plan. What he had was a friend in the building systems office whose name was Desmond Oyeleran, who had been a Nigerian Army signals officer before he became an American building tech, and who owed Logan a favor from the July of 2022 when Logan had not reported a situation involving Desmond's cousin, a small amount of cash, and a loading dock cigarette break that had gone about 40 minutes longer than scheduled. Desmond had told Logan at the time that he owed him one. Logan had believed him at the time, because Desmond was the kind of man who said things and meant them, and the 3 years since had only confirmed it. Logan picked up his phone and texted him. "You around tonight? Need to ask you something sideways." The reply came in 90 seconds. "I am always around, my friend. What is sideways? Not on text. Lobby? 10:15? 10:15. Logan set the phone face down and went to pick up Maddie from school. She came out of the building with her backpack hanging off one shoulder and a piece of yellow construction paper clutched in her left hand, and she ran to him and held up the construction paper like it was a subpoena. "I made you a fish," she said. "That is a beautiful fish, Mads." "It's a tuna." "How do you know it's a tuna?" "Because I drew it and I decided." He took the tuna. He held her small hand. They walked home the 3.5 blocks to the apartment, and she told him about a girl named Priya who had cried at snack time because her mother had packed the wrong kind of crackers, and about a boy named Jonah who had fallen off the monkey bars but not cried, and about how she herself had neither cried nor fallen off anything, and was therefore, by her own accounting, having the best day in the kindergarten that day. Logan said that sounded like a good day. She agreed. At home, he made her grilled cheese. He ate half a sandwich himself, standing at the counter. He watched her eat at the little fold-out table by the window, and he thought about Aria Vale saying, "Does anyone at this building know you have her?" And he thought about the HR system, and he thought about Colin Prentice filing his last name away like a card in a box. "Dad," Maddie said. "Yeah." "You have your serious face again." "I know, Mads." "Is it bad thinking still?" He set his half sandwich down. "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "If Mrs. Delgado couldn't come over tonight, would you be okay staying at Aunt Rose's for a couple of nights?" Maddie chewed. She was a thoughtful chewer. She always had been. "Is Aunt Rose's dog there?" "Yeah, Bruno's there." "Then, yeah. Just for a couple of nights. I want to do some stuff at work and I don't want to wake you up coming home." "Okay. You're not upset? Bruno is a good dog, Dad. He is a good dog. Also, Aunt Rosa has a waffle iron. This I know. She went back to her sandwich. Logan went into the other room and called his sister, who was not technically his sister but had been married to his wife's brother and had stayed his sister anyway after everything fell apart, and he said he needed a favor. And she said how long, and he said 2 nights, maybe 3. And she said bring her over at 7, and he said thank you, and she said shut up and bring her over at 7. Rosa Beltran lived in a 1-bedroom in a part of the city Colin Prentice had no reason to know about, and she worked nights as a dispatcher for a gypsy cab company, and her boyfriend Hector was a retired corrections officer who still slept with a baton under his bed. That was not why Logan had called her. But it wasn't nothing, either. He packed Maddie's overnight bag. He packed her pajamas and her toothbrush and her stuffed rabbit Felton and the 3 books she was currently rotating and a spare sweatshirt and her inhaler, which she only needed about once every 2 months, but which he never traveled without. He zipped the bag. He stood in the doorway of her room and watched her, on the rug, organizing her plastic animals into a parade. The giraffe was leading. It was always the giraffe. He got them both into a cab at 6:40. He paid for the cab, which he couldn't really afford, because he didn't want to put her on the subway with an overnight bag and nobody to carry it. Rosa opened her door in sweatpants and a Yankees hoodie and did not ask him any questions. She just hugged Maddie and said there was a waffle with her name on it. Roz, Logan said in the hallway quietly. Yeah, if anyone calls about her, anyone, building, school, anyone, Dirko, don't confirm she's with you. Just say you'll take a message. Rosa looked at him. Logan, I know. Is this the kind of thing where I should be calling somebody? Not yet. Is it the kind of thing where I might need to? If it gets to that, I'll tell you. Tonight, just take a message. She looked at him for a long second and then nodded, once, the way she nodded at everything, without drama. Don't make me regret not asking questions, she said. I'll try. He kissed Maddie on the top of her head. She pressed her forehead against his for exactly 1 second. No more, no less. He left. He got to the building at 9:40, 20 minutes early, which was unusual for him. Bevan was still on the desk, finishing up. Bevan looked surprised and then suspicious, and then bored again, which was the 3-stage sequence of Bevan's thinking about anything, and handed over the logbook. Quiet day, Bevan said. Anyone ask after the 52nd floor? Not on my shift. Anyone ask after me? Bevan, halfway out of his chair, stopped. Now that you mention it, who? Nobody gave a name. A guy in a suit came in around 4, asked if the building had, his words, a security guard with a little girl who comes in late. I told him we had a lot of security guards and I wasn't the guy to talk to about other people's kids. Logan kept his face flat. Okay, I wrote it in the log. That was right. Was it a thing? No, it's nothing. Good work, though. Bevan grinned, because Bevan was 23 and had never been complimented by Logan before, and went out through the revolving door into the evening, and Logan sat down in the swivel chair and did not look at any of the monitors for a full 10 seconds, because his hands were shaking. He put his hands flat on the desk and waited for the shake to stop. It stopped. He opened Building Pro 4.2. He opened the access log. He pulled the 52nd floor's activity for the last 6 hours. Arya had not left. She had also not opened her door. Not once. Not for food, not for the bathroom on the 50th floor, not for anything. A person who does not open a door for 6 hours is either dead or not moving on purpose. Logan picked up the phone. He dialed 5202. She picked up on the second ring. Coffee, Logan said. There was a pause on the line. I didn't say coffee, she said. I know, I said coffee. Are you okay? I'm at my desk. Why? A man came in this afternoon and asked Bevan about a security guard who has a little girl. Bevan didn't know anything. My daughter is no longer in the city. I'm telling you because I want you to know the shape of what happened today. I'm coming up. 10 minutes. I need to check your door. Logan. I need to check your door, Arya. A silence. Then, 10 minutes. He hung up. He pulled a small plastic case out of his jacket pocket, which he had brought from home on purpose, and set it on the desk. Inside the case were 6 small foil stickers about the size of a nickel. He had ordered them online 4 months ago for reasons that had nothing to do with this. They were tamper-evident seals. When you peeled them off a surface, they left a checkerboard pattern behind permanently, and you could not put them back. He closed the case and put it back in his jacket. At 9:58, Desmond came through the revolving door in his maintenance uniform, lunch bag in one hand, thermos in the other. "My friend?" Desmond said. He was a large man. He walked the way large men who have been soldiers walk, which is quietly and with his weight correct. "You are early. You are never early. This is the sideways thing already. Come around back." They went into the small office behind the security desk, which had a door that closed and a camera in the corner that Logan had 2 years ago, quietly unplugged and never reported. Desmond set down his lunch bag. Logan took out his phone. "I'm going to show you 3 things," Logan said, "and then I'm going to ask you one question. And I need you to tell me, before you answer, if the question is too much, and I'll put the phone away and we'll talk about something else." "All right." Logan showed him the access log. Desmond read it without expression. Logan showed him the phantom credential line. Desmond's jaw moved, a small thing. Logan showed him the 7-second camera freeze timestamp. Desmond put his thermos down on the desk slowly. "Logan, I know. This credential, service, elevated access. This is not in my system either, I would know." "I figured. This is someone with server access, not a badge, not a cloned badge, someone in the box. In the server room, or with a back door to the server room." "Is there a back door to the server room?" Desmond's face did something complicated. "There is not supposed to be," he said. Desmond: I know, my friend. Could someone put a back door in? With the right credentials, yes. The building's systems were last audited." He paused, thinking. "August. Late August. There is a vendor, a subcontractor. They come once a quarter. They plug into the rack with a laptop and they run their diagnostics, and they leave. Name: Halverson. Something. I do not remember. Halverson Dre, maybe." Logan did not move. "Halverson Dre is a law firm," he said. "Then it is their IT subsidiary. They all have IT subsidiaries now. Halverson Dre Technical Services. Something like that. I never looked. It was not my department." Desmond: "What you're telling me is that the law firm trying to screw the woman on 52 has been inside this building's server room legally, once a quarter, for some unknown length of time. I'm telling you I have no idea if that is what I'm telling you, but the shape of what you are showing me, yes, that is one shape it could be." Logan put the phone down. "My question," he said. "Ask. Can you pull the install records? Every change, every patch, every piece of software this vendor has put on our systems going back 2 years. Desmond looked at him. Logan saw in Desmond's face a man doing math he did not want to do. The math was about his own job, and his own green card, and his own wife at home, and his own 2 daughters. Logan understood the math. He did not push. "For a friend?" Desmond said. "For a friend. And if I say no? Then we have a beer on Saturday, and I don't say it again." Desmond looked down at the thermos. He looked at his lunch bag. He looked at Logan's phone, which still showed the phantom credential line. "She is the girl on the top floor." "Yes." "She is in trouble." "She is in trouble on Thursday at 3 o'clock. That is the day after tomorrow." "That's the day after tomorrow." Desmond breathed out through his nose. "My cousin," he said, "in July of 2022, Desmond, that is not why I'm asking. I know it is not why you are asking. That is why I am saying it, because you are not going to ask me to remember, so I am remembering for myself." He picked up his thermos. "I will have the install records on your personal email before the end of my shift. I will do this exactly one time. I will do it because you did not report my cousin, and I will do it because I have daughters, and because a woman on a top floor who is in trouble on Thursday at 3 o'clock is not a thing I can pretend I did not hear about. But after this, Logan, after this, the favor is complete, and we are even. And whatever you do with what I send you, my name is not in it. Not in a police report. Not in a courtroom. Not in a newspaper. Nowhere. Nowhere? Say it. Nowhere, Desmond. I swear to you." Desmond picked up his lunch bag. "Go check her door," he said. "Go. I will do what I said." He left. Logan went to the elevator bank and went up to 52. The hallway on 52 was quiet in the way very high floors are quiet, which is a specific quiet, a quiet that comes from being above the line where street sound stops. The carpet was dark gray. The lights had been dimmed to their after-hours setting. The door of 5202 looked no different than it had every other night he had walked past it. He took the tamper seals out of his jacket. He knelt down and examined the jam, the way he had been taught in his one brief and forgettable stint of community college criminal justice 15 years ago, before Maddie's mother got pregnant and he had to go find a real job. He looked for marks on the strike plate. He looked at the deadbolt housing. He looked at the hinge pins. There were no obvious marks, but the paint above the top hinge, when he angled his flashlight across it, had a small fresh scuff. Not a scratch, a scuff, where a shoulder or a tool had rested while someone did something else with their hands. He pressed one of the foil stickers across the seam of the top hinge, where the door met the frame. He pressed another along the bottom of the door, where the sweep met the threshold. He pressed a third on the jamb beside the deadbolt, at knee height, where no one brushing past would touch it. 3 seals. If anyone opened the door from the outside between now and Thursday, at least one of them would tear. He knocked. "It's Logan," he said quietly. The door opened 4 inches, on the chain, and one of Arya's eyes looked at him over it. "Come in." She shut the door, undid the chain, and opened it enough for him to step through. Then she closed it behind him, slid the chain back, and threw 2 dead bolts he had not heard her install. The office was not the office he had glimpsed through the door 3 weeks ago. Or rather it was, but it had become a different kind of office. The 3 monitors were still on the desk, but one of them had been turned to face the door. A second desk had been pulled into the center of the room at an angle, as a barrier. On the far wall, the whiteboard that had been covered in equations was now covered in a different kind of diagram, boxes and arrows that Logan recognized after a moment as a flowchart of a building's security architecture. His building. "You," Logan said, "have been doing your own homework." "I have been doing my own homework since I was 19, Mr. Reed." Logan. She was in the same jeans as 3 weeks ago, or an identical pair. Black t-shirt now, no sweatshirt. The bruise on her neck had faded to a dirty yellow and was almost gone. She had dark half circles under her eyes that were a different dark than before. They were the dark of someone who had decided to stop sleeping until a thing was over. "Your door has been opened again since Sunday," Logan said. "I know." "You know?" "Someone moved a pen on my desk. I leave 3 pens in a specific configuration. One of them was rotated 90 degrees. They tried to put it back the way they found it. They got it 90 degrees wrong." Logan looked at the desk. There were 3 pens on it, at careful angles to each other. "Jesus," he said, and then, because he had told Maddie he wouldn't say that word, "Sorry, okay, so they're in and out. They're in and out." I sealed the door. "I saw you on the feed. Thank you. You have the feed?" She tapped the center monitor. On it, in a small window, was a live shot of the hallway outside her own door, from a camera he did not recognize. "That's not a building camera." "No." "Where is it?" "Inside the smoke detector in the hallway. I put it in 3 weeks ago, the night I moved in." He stared at her. "You put a camera in a smoke detector?" "I put 6 cameras in 6 smoke detectors. 2 on this floor, 1 on the 51st, 1 on the stairwell door for 50, 1 in the freight elevator, and 1 in the lobby facing the revolving door. All of them run on their own wireless mesh to a server I control in another state. None of them touch the building network." "Arya." "Yes." "You didn't need me." She looked at him. "That is the opposite of what I need, Logan. You have 6 cameras and a mesh network and a pen code. And none of them get me out of a room full of men who have already decided I'm going to sign something. I have surveillance. I do not have, and have not had, a single person in this city, or any city, who will walk into that room behind me. That is what I do not have. That is what I have never had. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" He understood what she was telling him. He had not understood it 3 weeks ago. He had not understood it 3 days ago. He was starting to understand it now, and the understanding was a heavy thing, and it was heavy in a specific place in his chest, right under the collarbone. "Sit down," she said. He sat. There was only one other chair, a folding one by the whiteboard. He pulled it over to the desk. Show me what you have, Arya said. He took out his phone and showed her the access log, the phantom credential, and the 7-second camera freeze. Then he told her, flat, about Bevan and the man in the suit, and the question about the security guard with the little girl. He told her that his daughter was out of the city. He told her about Desmond. He told her about Halverson Dre Technical Services and the quarterly vendor visits and the install records that were coming to his personal Gmail before dawn. He watched her face as he spoke. Her face did what her face had done in the stairwell. It absorbed. It did not react. She did not gasp when he said Maddie was gone. She closed her eyes for a half second and opened them, and that was all. Halverson Dre Technical Services, she said when he was done. Yes, they own their own IT. Of course they do. They bill it to the client as part of the security review, and they use it to install the back door to the client's building at the same time they're negotiating the client's deal. It's vertical integration. That's what Desmond thinks they're doing. That is not a thing they are doing. That is a thing they have built an entire company to do. Logan, that is their whole product. That is the business. It is not a trick they are playing on me. It is a trick they play on everyone. How do you know? Because I have been researching these people for 5 months. Because the building I was in 3 cities ago had a vendor visit 2 weeks before I left. Because there is a pattern. Because I built something that compresses data, Mr. Logan, sorry. I compress data for a living. It is what my brain does. And when I compressed the pattern of their last 11 acquisitions, what I got was a routine. A routine. They approach, they offer, they threaten, they file, they visit the building, they install, they surveil, they escalate, they invite to a meeting, and in the meeting, this is the part I could not confirm until tonight, in the meeting they produce evidence. Of what? I could not guess. Something the target cannot dispute because the target does not know where it came from. Tax fraud, intellectual property violations, drug use, affairs, whatever they have harvested from the surveillance they installed in the building. They produce it and they say sign, or this goes public, or worse. And the target signs? And the target signs their patent rights over at 20 cents on the dollar and is told they should be grateful, and the target disappears from the industry, and 6 months later the technology shows up under a different name at one of the 3 companies. Logan was quiet. Arya, he said. Yes? What do they have on you? She did not answer right away. She looked, for the first time since he had walked in, tired in a way that was older than not sleeping. Tired the way his wife had been tired near the end. A tired that was not about rest. I don't know, she said. You don't know. I don't know what they have. I know what they could have. I spent 3 weeks in an apartment they had access to. I made phone calls. I sent emails. I slept. I cried. I had a bad night and broke a glass and shouted at a wall. I did all of it without knowing there were cameras in my smoke detectors, because the woman I am now would have checked, and the woman I was then did not. Whatever they have, I gave it to them, and I don't know what it is, and I cannot prepare for something I cannot see. She put both hands flat on the desk, the way he had put his on the counter that morning. That's why I was going to sign, she said. He looked up. What? If I walk into that room on Thursday, and they put a piece of paper in front of me and a flash drive next to it, and they press play on the flash drive, and it's me breaking a glass in my apartment and saying something I said out loud to a wall, I was going to sign. I was going to sign and take the 20 cents and go start over. That was my plan, Logan. That was the plan I had 5 months ago, and 3 cities ago, and 9 days ago, and until roughly 11 o'clock this morning when you grabbed my arm in an elevator bay. Barty, Arya, let me finish, okay? I was going to sign because the alternative was that they take the technology anyway and I get nothing, and I also cannot walk through the world without looking over my shoulder. I was going to sign because I am 26 years old and I am tired, Logan. I am so tired, and I have been running since I was 19 and I have no one, and the math of signing was better than the math of not signing. The math? She laughed, once, a hard, dry sound. I did the math. What changed? You grabbed my arm in an elevator bay. That's not enough to change the math. No, it isn't. What changed the math was that at 9:15 tonight, a man walked into this building and asked about a security guard with a little girl, and you sent your daughter to another borough, and you came to work anyway. He didn't say anything. I have not, in 7 years, Arya said, watched a person put someone else in front of themselves. I watched my father do the opposite when I was 17. I watched my thesis advisor do the opposite when I was 20. I watched 3 different lawyers do the opposite in the last 5 months. I had come to believe it was something people said they did and not a thing they actually did. And then you, who have known me for 22 days and do not owe me anything and cannot afford to lose this job, put your 6-year-old in a car and came to sit at your desk so that a man you have never met would not find her. You're making it sound more than it was. I am describing what happened. That is what happened. You can tell me what it was later. He looked at the whiteboard. He looked at the flowchart of a building he thought he knew. He looked at the pen rotated 90 degrees on the desk. Okay, he said. Okay, what? Okay, we're not signing. She laughed again. It was a different laugh. It was short and exhausted and almost relieved. Just like that. Just like that. We're not signing. We're going into that room on Thursday at 3 o'clock and we are not signing. Logan, they will have something on me. Then we find out what it is before Thursday. How? Desmond is pulling every install that law firm's IT arm has put on this building's systems in 2 years. If they surveilled you through something they installed here. And if they installed it here, Desmond will see it. And if Desmond sees it, we know what they have. And if we know what they have, we know what room to walk into. That's a lot of ifs. That's where we are, Arya. She was quiet for a while. Her eyes went to the whiteboard, and then to the monitor with the hallway feed, and then, finally, to his face. There's one other thing, she said. Yeah. I don't go into that meeting alone. No. You walk in with me. I was planning on it. No. She shook her head. Not as my security, not as a guard, not in the uniform. You walk in as counsel, technical counsel, not legal. They will not check because they will not expect me to have brought anyone. You stand behind me and you do not speak, and you hold the phone with the evidence on it. And if they play their flash drive, you play ours. That is the trade. That is what ends it. I'm not a lawyer. I don't need a lawyer. I need a witness with his own hard drive. He thought about it. He thought about Maddie at Rose's, and Bruno the dog, and the waffle iron, and the $1,100 that was about to become $900 after this week's cab fare. And the fact that walking into a conference room full of Halverson Dre partners as a fake technical advisor while holding evidence of their back door was the single most firing offense thing a building security guard could do. And that the firing offense was also, possibly, the single clearest path he had ever been offered to doing something that mattered. Okay, he said. Okay. She nodded. One more thing, she said. Yeah. Your daughter. What about her? After Thursday, if Thursday goes wrong, they will still know she exists. They will still know where she is. They will still know her school, her aunt, her doctor, her stuffed rabbit. That knowledge does not expire when the meeting ends. If I sign, it expires because I am no longer a threat. If I don't sign, it does not expire. You understand what I am saying to you? I understand. Are you sure? I am sure. Because I will not be the reason a 6-year-old loses her father, Logan. I will sign before I let that happen. I need you to know that. I need you to know that if it comes to that in the room, I will sign, and you will let me, and you will not be a hero about it. He looked at her. Arya, I mean it. I know you mean it, and I'm telling you, if it comes to that, you will not sign, because I will not let you decide that for me. My daughter has a father who does not let other people sign away their lives to save his convenience. That is the father I am going to be, which is also the father I am going to go home to her as. If that is not the deal, then tell me now and I'll walk out of this office, and you can handle Thursday your own way. The room was very quiet. The wind, 52 floors up, made a sound against the window that was not quite a whistle and not quite a hum. That is an extremely stupid thing to say, Logan. Probably. It is also the correct thing to say. Yeah. She put out her hand across the desk. He took it. This time, the shake lasted longer than it had in the stairwell. At 11:40, he went back down to the lobby. She stayed in 5202. He did his rounds at 12 and at 2 and at 4. He walked past 5202 each time. The seals held. The seals held all night. At 4:11 in the morning, The time the phantom credential had last been used, he sat at the desk and watched the lobby doors and did not blink for 3 minutes, and no one came in, and no one came out, and the second hand on the lobby clock moved in its steady circle, and the bad coffee cooled in the paper cup in his hand. At 5:30, his personal phone buzzed. It was an email from Desmond, from a Gmail address Logan had not seen before, with the subject line, "Your thing." The body of the email said only, "Read fast, delete after." D. There were 17 attachments. Logan opened the first one on his phone, then thought better of it, took out his laptop from his backpack, the small, refurbished one he used at home, and opened the attachments there at the desk, with the monitors of Building Pro 4.2 turned, so their glow did not reflect on the screen. The first attachment was an install log, dated 21 months ago. It described the installation on the building's server rack of a package called HDTS Integrated Access Management V2.3. The installer's name, signed off in the log, was a man named Peter Monk. The second attachment was a change log for HDTSIAMV 2.3. It showed that in the 21 months since install, the package had been updated 9 times. Each update had been pushed remotely. Each update had been signed off again by Peter Monk. The third attachment was a packet capture. Desmond had, at some cost to his own sleep, gone through and captured actual network traffic between the building's servers and the outside world for the last 48 hours. It showed, in plain text, a regular heartbeat of encrypted packets flowing from the building's server rack to an IP address that, when Logan put it into a lookup site, resolved to a data center in a state about 400 miles south. The fourth attachment was a PDF of the vendor contract. It was 41 pages. Logan read the first 2 pages and stopped. The second paragraph of page 1 said that Halverson Dre Technical Services retained the right to monitor, log, and retain all network traffic passing through any system it installed, including audio and video traffic incident to building operations, for the purpose of ongoing security assurance. The signature on the building's side was the building manager, a man named Art Palmisano, who Logan had always thought was an idiot and who had now confirmed it. The 5th through the 17th attachments were the part Logan had asked for and had been half afraid to see. They were a directory listing of what the HDTS IAMV 2.3 package had, at the time of Desmond's capture, stored on the building's server rack. There were folders by floor. Floor 52 had a folder. Inside the folder were subfolders dated back to 3 weeks ago, which was the day Area Vale had walked into the lobby with a duffel bag. Inside each dated subfolder were audio files. Logan did not play any of them. He closed the laptop. He sat at the desk and put his hands flat on it and breathed for a full minute. Then he opened the laptop again and copied every single attachment to an external drive the size of his thumbnail. And he took the external drive and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. And then he copied them a second time to a different drive, and he walked down the hall to the janitor's closet on the lobby level, and he put the second drive inside an empty can of floor polish that had been sitting on the top shelf since before he started the job. Then he went back to the desk, and he deleted every trace of the email and the attachments from his laptop, the way Desmond had told him to, the way a man who had worked in a building like this for 6 years knew how to do. At 7:43, he locked the desk. He texted Arya from his personal phone to the number that had sent him 52nd floor conference room. 3 p.m. Thursday. We have it, all of it. Meet me on the 2nd floor landing tonight at 10. The reply took 9 seconds. Coffee. He stared at it. Then he smiled, a real smile, for the first time in a long time. Coffee, he wrote back. He put the phone in his pocket, handed off to Bevan, walked out through the revolving door into the gray morning, and stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the 52nd floor, the way he had the morning before. The wind on the street was colder than it had been. The light in Arya's window, 52 floors up, was on. It had been on all night. He went home to sleep. Above the city, in a building that he was starting to understand he did not work for and had never really worked for, a package called HDTSIAMV 2.3 continued its regular heartbeat to a data center 400 miles south, uninterrupted and confident, the way a thing is confident when it has been running a very long time without anyone noticing it was there. It did not know yet that someone had noticed. It was going to find out on Thursday at 3 o'clock. He did not sleep well. He had meant to. He got home at 8:20, pulled the blackout curtains, ate a piece of toast standing at the counter, drank a glass of water, and lay down on the mattress still wearing his socks. He closed his eyes and told himself that a man who was going to walk into a conference room on the 52nd floor of a building at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon and tell a room full of lawyers that he had evidence of their illegal surveillance operation needed, first, to be arrested. His body understood what he was saying and disagreed. He slept in fragments. At 9:40 he woke up because he thought he had heard the front door. He had not. At 10:15 he woke up because a car alarm 2 blocks over started going off and kept going for 11 minutes before someone down there, God bless them, finally dealt with whatever it was. At 11:20 he woke up because his phone buzzed. It was a text from Rosa, a picture of Maddie on the kitchen floor eating a waffle off a plate on the rug, because apparently Maddie had decided that today she was a dog, and Rosa was allowing this because Rosa knew how to pick her battles. The caption said, "She's fine, stop worrying, go back to sleep." He looked at the picture for a long time. Then he went back to sleep for another 90 minutes, and at 1:30 he gave up, got out of bed, made coffee that tasted like coffee and not like a penny, and sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad he had bought 7 years ago for a reason he could no longer remember and had never used until now. He wrote at the top of the page, Thursday, 3 p.m., 52nd floor conference room. Under it he wrote, Things we know. And under that, Things we don't know. The Things we know list got longer than he expected. They knew Halverson Dre Technical Services had installed a surveillance package 21 months ago. They knew it was currently streaming data to a specific data center 400 miles south. They knew there were audio files in a folder labeled with Aria's floor, going back to the day she moved in. They knew there was somewhere a phantom credential being used to enter her office while she was out. They knew at least one man, Colin Prentice, was the outside face of the operation. And at least one other man, Peter Monk, was the inside hand. They knew a third man, unnamed, had come looking for Logan's daughter yesterday. The Things we don't know list was shorter but weighed more. They did not know what was in the audio files. They did not know what other evidence Halverson Dre had collected on Aria in the 3 cities before this one. They did not know how many people would be in the conference room on Thursday. They did not know whether any of those people would be armed, or whether being armed was the kind of thing Halverson Dre used, or whether Halverson Dre preferred the kind of armed that looked like a briefcase and a signed piece of paper. They did not know what Aria's specific pressure point was, what, in those audio files, the room was going to play, and they did not know whether the police, if called, would arrive in 3 minutes, or 9 minutes, or at all, in a building whose security system was owned by the firm doing the pressuring. He underlined that last point twice. Then he wrote at the bottom of the page, What we need. Under that he wrote slowly, Independent way to call for help, independent way to play evidence, independent way out. He put the pen down, he picked it up. He wrote, Maddie does not come back until it's over. He underlined that 3 times. He thought for a minute. Then he wrote more slowly, If it is not over, Maddie does not come back at all, and Rosa takes her to her cousin in Albuquerque until further notice. Call Rosa tonight. He put the pen down again and pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes until he saw lights, and then he picked up the phone and called his sister-in-law. Hey, Rosa said. She's fine. She's napping. I know. I saw your picture. Rose, I need to tell you something, and I need you not to interrupt me, because if you interrupt me, I'm going to lose my nerve. There was a pause. Okay, he told her. He did not tell her the whole thing. He told her the shape of it. He told her that he had learned some things about the building he worked in, and the people who had hired the building's vendor, and a tenant. Those people were trying to force into a bad deal, and that on Thursday afternoon he was going to be in a meeting with those people, and that after the meeting, one of 2 things was going to happen. Either it was going to be over, and he was going to come get Maddie on Friday morning, or it was not going to be over, and Rosa was going to take Maddie on a Greyhound bus to their cousin Selena in Albuquerque and wait there until Logan called and said it was safe. Rosa did not interrupt. When he finished, she was quiet for so long that he thought the call had dropped. Logan, she said, I know. Logan, this is... I know, Rose. You are describing a situation I have seen on television. I am describing a situation that is happening in real life, and I don't have time to be embarrassed about how it sounds. Is there any world in which you call the police tonight instead of going into this meeting tomorrow? I thought about it. I thought about it for most of this morning. The problem is that the building systems, the systems any police report would go through, any records request, any subpoena, those systems are what got compromised. If I call tonight, the people I would be calling the police about find out I called before the police do. And then Arya is in a conference room by herself on Thursday, and my daughter is Roz. I don't know what they would do. I know what they would be capable of. But me, you don't know that Arya is worth this. He did not answer right away. Ross, I'm asking. I don't know that she is. I know that I am the only person standing between her and a room of people who are going to eat her alive tomorrow. And I know that the second thing I know is also true whether or not she is worth it. Rosa breathed out, long, on the other end. You always were the stubborn one, Logan. I wasn't. I was the quiet one. Quiet and stubborn are the same thing. Quiet people just hide it better. Roz, will you do it? Of course I'll do it, Logan. The bus tickets, I have money, Logan. The bus tickets, I have money, Logan. Shut up about the bus tickets. Listen to me. Her voice had gone into the register she used when her husband had still been alive, the register that meant the decision is made. Stop arguing with air. You are going to call me tomorrow at 2:45. 2:45 on the dot. If I do not hear from you, I pack her bag and we are at the Greyhound station by 4:15. If you call me at 2:45 and say you're going in, I wait. If you call me at 4:30 and say it is over, I unpack. If you do not call me at 4:30, I pack. Those are the rules. Say them back. He said them back. Good, she said. Now put the phone down and eat something real. You sound like a man who has been eating toast. I have been eating toast. Eat something that was once alive, Logan. She hung up. He sat at the table for a minute more. Then he got up, walked to the refrigerator, looked into it, and took out 4 eggs and a piece of leftover chicken and a handful of spinach that was on the edge of going, and he made himself something that could reasonably be called a meal, and he ate it standing at the counter because he did not trust himself to sit back down. By 2:30 he was on the subway going downtown. He was not due at work until 8. He was going in early because there was a thing he had to do before his shift, and it could not be done during his shift, and it could not be done at home. He got off at the stop 3 before the building's stop. He walked from there. The walk took 22 minutes. He spent the walk thinking about cameras, not the ones in the smoke detectors on the 52nd floor, the ones on the street, at the intersections, on the ATMs, on the coffee shops. He walked with his chin down and a ball cap he had not worn since 2019 pulled low, and he stopped once at a hardware store 3 blocks from the building and bought 2 things in cash: a small battery-powered wireless speaker and a simple 3-pack of prepaid burner phones. The kid at the counter rang him up without looking at his face. At 3:10, he walked into a coffee shop across the avenue from his building. He sat at a table by the window where he could watch the revolving doors. He ordered a sandwich he did not want and a coffee he did not need, and he set up the 3 burner phones at the table, one at a time, powering them on, activating the plans that had come in the packaging, and then he did something that took him almost an hour. He recorded a voice memo on his own personal phone. A calm, clear statement of what he knew, who he was, where the evidence was, and who would need to be contacted if he did not call a specific number by 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon. He recorded it twice and kept the better take. Then he emailed the voice memo, together with photocopies of the 17 attachments Desmond had sent him, to 3 addresses. His Rosa, a local reporter named Wen Hualin, whose byline he had seen on 2 stories in the last year about corporate surveillance, and who he had no reason to believe would open an unsolicited email from a stranger, but who would have something in her inbox tomorrow if things went wrong. And to an address at the State Attorney General's office that the internet said was the office's public tip line. He set the emails to send automatically at 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon if he did not, between now and then, log in and cancel the send. He was not a sophisticated person with computers, but he had read enough about the trick to do it. It took him the full hour. When he was done, he closed his laptop. He sat at the window and ate half the sandwich and drank the coffee, which was better than the coffee at work, but not by much. He watched the revolving doors of his building for 30 minutes. At 4:20, Colin Prentice walked into the building. He was not alone. There was a man with him, slightly behind, slightly to the right. And the man with him was the man who had been described by Bevan. Medium height, suit, nothing to remember about the face. He would be the kind of face you saw on a subway and could not have picked out of a lineup an hour later. Logan committed it to memory anyway, the way a man commits something to memory when memory is all he has. The two of them went through the revolving doors and out of sight. Logan sat at the window. He waited. At 4:38, they came back out. They walked east. A black car pulled up for them at the corner. They got in. The car drove away. Logan paid his check in cash and walked to the building. He went in through the revolving door at 4:45. Bevan was still on the desk. Bevan looked up, surprised. "You're early, man." "Couldn't sleep. Anything I should pass on? Anyone upstairs this afternoon?" Bevan glanced at the log, a little too casually. "Two gentlemen from Halverson Dre, 5202. They had an appointment." "Did Ms. Vale badge them up?" "Yeah, 10 minutes. They came right back down." 10 minutes. "Yeah." Logan looked at him. Bevan looked at the desk. "Bevan." "Yeah." "What did the log say about their visit?" "Just that they had an appointment." "Bevan, what did the log say about their visit? Read it to me." Bevan scrolled, clicked, and read it to him. "Halverson Dre. Pre-meeting pre-check. 10 minutes. Mr. Prentice and Associate. Visitor badges issued. Visitor badges returned. End entry." "Who wrote the entry?" "I did." "Who told you to write it like that?" Bevan's mouth opened a little. "What?" "Who told you to write it like that, Bevan? Those are not words you would write. Those are words somebody told you to write." "Logan, man, come on." "I'm not mad. I'm not going to tell on you. I'm asking, who told you?" Bevan glanced at the front doors, as if Colin Prentice might still be standing there. "The guy. The one in the suit, not Prentice. The associate guy. On the way in, he said they were doing a pre-meeting review, and he said it'd save me some time on the log if I used his phrase. Logan, I didn't think it was a big deal. They had a legit appointment." The tenant buzzed them up. They were up there 10 minutes. "How did they go up?" "What? How did they go up, Bevan? Did you badge them up, or did they use their own credentials?" They had maintenance badges. Halverson Dre Technical Services. The associate said they were doing a sweep of the 52nd floor electrical before the meeting tomorrow, as a courtesy, because the meeting was going to run long and they didn't want any hiccups. So I used their technical services clearance, not a visitor badge. But I put them in the visitor log anyway because it's building policy to log humans, not just credentials. Bevan. "Yeah. They went into Miss Vale's office. They buzzed up. Yeah. She let them in. She stood there while they were in there. I can pull the hallway cam. Don't pull anything." "Logan, did I screw up?" Logan closed his eyes for a second. "No," he said. "You did exactly what the log says you did. You followed the letter of the policy. It's not your fault. Don't change the entry. Leave it alone. Don't tell anyone we had this conversation. Go home, eat dinner, come in tomorrow at the regular time, and if anything weird happens on your shift, text me, and do not, Bevan, look at me. Do not put anything else in that log that somebody else phrases for you." "Okay, Logan. Okay." Bevan grabbed his jacket and left, faster than usual. Logan watched him go out the revolving door and put his hands flat on the desk and breathed. They had done a dry run. They had gone up to Arya's office under a vendor pretext, spent 10 minutes in the room with her, made sure everything was exactly the way they wanted it for 3 o'clock the next day, and come back down. If they had needed to install anything last minute in her office, they had installed it. If they had needed to see her face and measure her for the fear it would carry tomorrow, they had seen it. If they had needed to spook her, they had done that too. Logan picked up the desk phone and dialed 5202. She picked up on the first ring. "Coffee," he said. "Come up." He went. He used the freight elevator on the way up, out of habit and out of something else, and he met her at the door of 5202, and she was paler than she had been last night, and her hands were not quite steady when she unlatched the chain. She closed the door behind him and leaned her forehead against it for 1 full second, eyes closed. "They were here," she said, to the door. "I know. Prentice and a man. Prentice said they wanted to walk the room where tomorrow's meeting will take place." That was their phrase. Walk the room. They also said the 52nd floor conference room had been reserved for our meeting as a courtesy to me. I did not ask for a conference room, Logan. I thought the meeting was at their offices. The meeting was always going to be here. Yes, I know that now. What did they do in the office? Prentice sat in the chair you're standing next to. The other one, he never gave a name, walked around the perimeter, looked at my whiteboard, looked at my monitors, looked at my pens, did not touch anything. Then Prentice said, "Tomorrow at 3, Ms. Vale, 52nd floor conference room. You don't need to bring anything. We'll provide the documents. It would be a kindness to all of us if this didn't take long." And they left. He said kindness. He said kindness. Arya, yes? He said kindness because he is enjoying this. Yes? She lifted her head off the door. "I think I want to throw up," she said, flat. "The bathroom is on 50. I'll walk you." "No, I'm not going to throw up. I'm telling you that I want to. There's a difference." "Okay." She walked to the desk and sat down. She pressed her palms into her eyes. She made a small sound that was not a cry and was not a laugh and was something in between. "Before you grabbed my arm in the elevator bay," she said, "I had mostly stopped being afraid. Everything was bad, and I knew it was bad, and I had made my peace with how bad it was. And then you made me care about whether I survived. And now I am so scared, Logan. I am so scared. I did not know I could still do this much scared." He did not move toward her. He did not touch her. He had a clear sense that if he touched her right now, she would either punch him or break in a way that would be very difficult to put back together before 3 o'clock tomorrow. "Arya, listen to me. Yeah, you are scared because the stakes got real. They did not get higher. They got real. They were always this high. You were just going into the fight already dead. You are not going in dead tomorrow. That's the difference. That's all the difference." She took her hands away from her eyes. She looked at him. "You should have been a therapist, Logan." "I cannot afford to be a therapist." "No, I mean it. You have a knack. I have 6 years of standing behind a desk listening to people who thought they were talking to a piece of furniture. That is not a knack. That is an occupational hazard. Whatever it is, thank you." He let that sit. "Tell me what you did today," he said. She sat up straighter. This, he was learning, was how she reset. Give her a thing to list and her spine came back online. "I made copies of my work," she said. 3 copies, 3 physical drives, 3 different couriers, 3 different cities. They went out at 2. The originals of the patents were already in escrow with a firm I used when I was 20, a firm that does not know Halverson Dre exists and would eat them alive if they did. I cannot be threatened with losing the work tomorrow. They cannot say sign or we steal it. Because the version they would steal is a decoy, and the real version is already in 4 places they cannot reach. Good. I drafted a counter instrument. It's a 12-page document that says, in a language they will recognize, that any coerced contract they produce tomorrow is null on its face, that any use of surveillance material obtained under the vendor agreement is criminal under the state's wiretapping statute, that I am willing to pursue it civilly and to refer it criminally, and that the signatories of any such coerced contract are personally liable, not just the firm. Who signed it? I did. I signed it at noon. I notarized it at 12:40. I put a copy in the same escrow as the patents. Good. And I slept for 2 hours. I slept because I knew if I did not sleep, I was going to walk into that room tomorrow, making mistakes. And I have made the calculation that I would rather walk in rested and afraid than exhausted and numb. That's the right calculation. I know. She paused. What about you? What did you do today? He told her. He told her about Rosa and Albuquerque and the 2:45 phone call. He told her about the speaker and the 3 burner phones and the email set to send at 5. He told her about Bevan and the dry run. He told her about Colin Prentice walking east and getting in the black car. She listened to all of it without interrupting. She was, he was realizing, an excellent listener. She had the kind of attention that a less kind person would have called interrogation. When he was done, she nodded. Good, she said. That's good. That's very good. Now here's what we have not solved. Okay? The meeting is in this building. That means the vendor's surveillance package is live in the room we are walking into. That means, from the second we open the conference room door, everything we say is captured, stored, and streaming to their data center. That means we cannot speak freely in that room without giving them the ability to edit it. That means we cannot produce our evidence in that room without them being able to preempt us. If they are monitoring in real time, they will see us pull out a drive, and they will cut power to the room or jam the connection or send someone in through the other door to take it. We need to assume they will. Yes. So we don't pull out a drive in that room. Right. So what do we pull out? She almost smiled. We pull out, she said, a phone. But the phone is not the evidence. The phone is the trigger. Trigger for what? Trigger for the fire alarm. He looked at her. The fire alarm. The building's fire alarm system, when pulled, does three things. It cuts power to all non-emergency building systems. It opens all magnetically locked doors. And it sends an automatic signal to the city fire department and, crucially, to the police precinct 2 blocks east. The fire alarm does not go through the Halverson-Dre vendor package. It is on a separate circuit because that is the law. Desmond confirmed this for me in the stairwell this afternoon. Desmond talked to you. He left a note under a can of floor polish. He said, quote, "If you are going to do a thing, do it big and make the alarm your friend," end quote. Desmond wrote that. Desmond wrote that. I think you underestimate Desmond. I do not underestimate Desmond. I am simply understanding Desmond has had apparently a morning. Focus, Logan. Yes. So, fire alarm. When we pull it, their surveillance goes dark, the conference room doors unlock, the police and fire show up within some number of minutes. That's the trigger. That's the end of the meeting, on our terms. Yes. The problem. Yes. Pulling the fire alarm when the building is not on fire is a crime. In this state, it is a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 90 days and a fine, except where the person pulling it had a reasonable belief that an emergency was occurring or was imminent. And we have a reasonable belief. We have a folder full of audio recordings being illegally captured from a tenant's office, and we have a meeting scheduled to use those recordings to extort her, and we have, at that point, a man telling her to sign or lose everything. That is an emergency in progress. No jury in this county would convict a person for pulling an alarm to interrupt a felony. How do you know what a jury in this county would do? I have spent the last 5 months learning things a person my age should not have to know, Logan. Fair. The other problem. Yes, pulling the alarm does not end the meeting. It only ends the part of the meeting where they control the narrative. What ends the meeting is the evidence. And if the evidence does not get to a place where it cannot be suppressed, then the alarm is just noise. We need the evidence delivered, outside the building, to 3 places simultaneously: the reporter, the attorney general, and the district attorney, in a format that cannot be retracted by a lawyer making a phone call tonight. That's my auto email. That's your auto email, but I want to improve it. Improve it how? I want to move the trigger from 5 o'clock Thursday to 3:15, 15 minutes after the meeting starts, because if the meeting goes sideways, 5 o'clock is too late. 15 minutes into the meeting, if we have not canceled the send, the world sees the files. That's enough of a gap for us to cancel if everything goes fine. It is not enough of a gap for them to recover if everything goes wrong. Okay. And I want to add a 4th address. Who? The state bar. I want Halverson-Dre's conduct on the desk of every ethics officer in the state tomorrow morning. That is not a lawsuit problem. That is a disbarment problem. And a disbarment problem is a problem the partners personally cannot insure against. Colin Prentice can have an entire firm's insurance policy behind him in civil court. He cannot have an insurance policy that keeps him licensed. This is the difference between hurting them and ending them. Logan looked at her. You want to end them? I want the people they have already done this to get their patents back, Logan. There are at least 11 other inventors in the last 3 years. I want their patents back. I am not doing this for me. I stopped doing this for me about 4 hours ago. Okay. And I want my name off of them forever. After this, I do not exist. I go somewhere quiet. I build something that doesn't compress anything. I grow a garden, maybe. I don't know. You don't know how to grow a garden. I know I don't. That's partly the appeal. Arya? Yes? After this, after tomorrow, wherever you go, whatever garden you fail to grow, My daughter comes home and I go back to my desk and I do not see you again. Do you understand that? She looked at him. Yes. I need to hear you say it. I understand that, Logan. You have a daughter. I am a tornado. Tornadoes do not move in with people who have daughters. After tomorrow, you do not see me again. I do not want you to see me again. It is not safe for you to see me again. Are we clear? We are clear. Good. Now, what else? They worked through the evening. They mapped the conference room, 2 floors up from her office, a large glass-walled room on the southwest corner of 52 that had been reserved, per the building's system, every Thursday at 3 by Halverson Dre Technical Services for the past 11 months, a fact that by itself was a crime, but one they did not have time to be angry about. They mapped the exits. 2 doors, 1 front, 1 back. 1 window that did not open. 2 sets of light switches. A teleconference set up in the ceiling. Under the table, a pull for the in-wall fire alarm was about 18 inches from the end of table seat, which was, per Arya's intelligence, the seat they were going to make her take. The in-wall alarm had been installed in 2009 and was, Desmond had noted in the same floor polish memo, still on the independent fire circuit. It had not been and could not be compromised. They wrote out, on the back of Logan's legal pad, a sequence, a minute-by-minute, line-by-line sequence of what would happen from the second they walked through the conference room doors until the second the police arrived. He would be introduced as technical counsel. He would not speak. He would carry a laptop bag, and the bag would be a second laptop, clean, air-gapped, with the entire Desmond package on it, wired to the small battery speaker, configured to play out loud when a single key was pressed. He would sit against the wall, not at the table. He would keep the bag on his lap. She would sit at the end of the table. She would accept the contract. She would read it. She would speak only the minimum. Yes, no, I understand. She would wait for them to produce their evidence. When they produced it, a flash drive, a file on a screen, a printed transcript, she would not react. She would say only, I would like to understand the chain of custody of this material. That was the line. That was the line that said, to them, that she knew what they had done. That was the line that would change the temperature in the room. She would say that line at precisely 3:12, give or take 60 seconds. Logan would press 1 key on his laptop at 3:13. The first 60 seconds of one of the Halverson Dre audio files, their own files, captured in their own vendor package, recorded in Arya's own office, stamped with the data center IP address, would play out of the battery speaker on his lap. She would continue, above the audio. This is a copy of the file you were about to produce, obtained from your own server at your own data center, routed through a vendor agreement you signed personally, Mr. Prentice, with a building manager who did not have the authority to sign it. This is a crime. You are all in the commission of a crime, in this room, on camera, right now. Then she would reach under the table and pull the fire alarm. At that point, everything they could control ended. What happened after would depend on how the men in the room chose to behave when the ground moved under them. Arya and Logan would stay in the room. They would not run. They would sit where they were, with their hands visible, until uniformed officers arrived. If anyone in the room attempted to take the laptop or the drive, Arya would say, loudly, that the laptop was a copy and that all files had already been transmitted to the state attorney general, the district attorney, the state bar, and a reporter. She would say it loudly so that, when investigators later pulled the in-room audio from the Halverson Dre servers, because it would be the evidence against Halverson Dre themselves, it would be clear that the fact of the transmission was known to the room. That was the plan. It was not a good plan. Logan knew it was not a good plan. A good plan did not have, at its center, a 6-second window between pressing a key and pulling a fire alarm, during which 4 to 6 adult men with a great deal to lose could reasonably be expected to do any number of things they would regret later. A good plan had redundancy. A good plan had an extraction. A good plan did not assume that a security guard with a knee that clicked when he stood up could hold down a corner of a conference room while a 26-year-old woman with a yellowing bruise on her neck negotiated with the people who had put it there. But it was the plan they had, and it was better than signing. At 11 o'clock, he went back to the desk. She stayed in the office. She did not sleep that night either. He did his rounds and checked the seals and watched the lobby doors and waited. And at 4:11 in the morning, the hour that had turned into the hour when things came for them, nothing happened. The lobby stayed empty. The phantom credential did not fire. The camera did not freeze. Either Halverson Dre had decided they did not need to do any more preparation, or they were saving their last move for the morning. It was hard to know which was worse. At 7 a.m., his phone buzzed. It was Rosa, a photograph of Maddie at the kitchen table eating cereal with Bruno, the dog, sitting patiently at her feet. The caption said she asked if she could call you at lunch. I said yes. Okay? He wrote back yes. 12:30. Tell her I love her. The phone buzzed again 90 seconds later. A picture of a piece of paper. Maddie had drawn a fish on it. Different from yesterday's tuna. Smaller. Blue. The caption in Rosa's handwriting on the paper itself said, "From the artist." She says this one is a minnow, and it's for tomorrow. He looked at the photograph of the minnow for a long time. Then he put the phone down and stared at the lobby doors until his relief came at 8. He did not go home. He went to a diner 6 blocks west, ordered eggs he forgot to eat, paid in cash, and sat in the booth for 3 hours watching people go by through the window who had no idea what was going to happen on the 52nd floor of a building 6 blocks away at 3 o'clock that afternoon. And he thought about how strange it was that this was always true, that everything that was going to happen to everyone in the world that afternoon was somewhere being set up right now. And most of the people walking by the window had no idea which of those setups were about to land on them. At 11:30, he paid for the eggs and walked back toward the building. He did not go through the revolving doors. He went around the corner to the service entrance, which he had a key to, and he went up through the freight elevator. He got out on 52. He knocked at 5202. She let him in. She had changed clothes, a gray blazer over a white shirt, dark trousers, flat black shoes. Her hair was up. She looked older than 26 and younger than the people she was about to face, and her eyes were very, very clear. "You didn't sleep," he said. "You didn't either." "No." "Do you have everything?" He opened the laptop bag. The clean laptop was in it, already powered on, cabled to the little battery speaker he had bought in cash. The burner phone was in the side pocket. His personal phone was in his jacket. "I have everything." "Give me the laptop." He handed it over. She opened a folder called Test, pressed a key, and the first 3 seconds of a Halverson Dre audio file came out of the battery speaker. It was her own voice. It was her months ago in a different city saying to a wall, "I can't do this. I can't. I can't." She stopped the file. She closed her eyes for 2 seconds. She opened them. "Good," she said. She handed the laptop back. At 12:30, his personal phone rang. He stepped into the hall to answer it. "Daddy?" Maddie said. "Hi, Mads. Aunt Rosa is making sandwiches." "What kind?" "Turkey, with the mustard that has the seeds in it that I like." "That's a good sandwich, Daddy." "Yeah." "Are you at work?" "I'm at work, honey." "Okay, I love you." "I love you too, Mads." "Here's Bruno." There was a snuffling sound. The dog breathed heavily into the phone for about 4 seconds. "Okay, bye," Maddie said, and she hung up. Logan stood in the hallway on 52 with the phone in his hand. Then he put it in his pocket and went back into 5202. 2:45, he said. "We go." 2:45. At 2:45, he called Rosa. He said only 2 words, "Going in." She said only one back, "Okay." They rode the elevator up to 54, to the conference room, at 2:56. The hallway was silent. The glass doors of the conference room were open. Colin Prentice stood at the head of the table. 3 other men in suits sat along the far side. 2 more men in plain dark clothes that were not suits stood against the back wall, behind the seated men, and did not have briefcases. Prentice smiled when they walked in. The smile did not touch his eyes. "Ms. Vale," he said. "Mr. Reed, I don't believe we've been introduced." "I'm with her," Logan said. "In what capacity?" "Technical counsel." Prentice's eyes moved slowly from Logan's face to the laptop bag and back. "Of course," he said. "Do have a seat." Arya walked to the chair at the end of the table. Logan walked to the chair against the wall. He set the laptop bag on his lap. Somewhere on a server in a data center 400 miles south, a recording began and continued of everything that was about to be said. Somewhere, on a different server, an email was queued to send in exactly 15 minutes. Somewhere, 3 subway stops and a cab ride and a Greyhound station away, a 6-year-old girl was sitting on a kitchen floor feeding the crust of a turkey sandwich to a large dog. Colin Prentice sat down. "Ms. Vale," he said. "Thank you for coming. This won't take long." He slid a manila folder across the table. Arya did not reach for it. She looked at Prentice and she said, in a voice that was steady enough that Logan felt his own shoulders drop 1/4 of an inch with relief. "Before I read anything, Mr. Prentice, I'd like to understand the chain of custody of whatever you're about to show me." Prentice's smile did not change, but something behind his eyes did, and the man on the back wall, the one who had never given his name, the one who had told Bevan how to phrase a log entry, took one very small step forward, away from the wall, and put one hand inside his jacket. The clock on the wall, a plain white clock with black hands, ticked from 3:11 to 3:12. Under the table, 18 inches from Arya's right knee, a red handle on the wall waited to be pulled, and on Logan's lap, under the zipper of a bag that cost $11 at a chain store 3 weeks ago for reasons he was only now beginning to understand, a clean laptop waited for a single key to be pressed. He put his thumb on the key. The room did not move for a full second. Colin Prentice's hand stayed flat on the manila folder he had slid across the table. His eyes stayed on Arya's. The 3 men in suits on the far side of the table looked at Prentice, not at her, which was how Logan knew they were not lawyers. Lawyers look at the person speaking. Employees look at the person paying. The man on the back wall with his hand inside his jacket had not moved that hand, but he had not taken it out either. And the not taking it out was, to Logan's eye, the louder thing. "Chain of custody," Prentice said slowly, as if Arya had asked him a riddle. "That's an interesting phrase coming from someone who hasn't seen what's in the folder yet." "I've seen enough, Mr. Prentice." "Have you?" "I've seen the install logs from August of 2 years ago. I've seen the 9 patches that have been pushed to the building's server racks since. I've seen the packet captures. I've seen the directory listing of a folder on your server titled with my floor number, containing audio files dated from the day I moved into this building. I have seen, Mr. Prentice, your entire operation. So when you slide a folder across a table, I do not need to open it to know what is in it. What I need to know is what you think you are going to do with it." "Bam boshimauchi nashinkads." Prentice smiled. It was the same smile from the lobby 3 weeks ago. It still did not touch his eyes. But now Logan could see for the first time what the smile was actually for. It was not a smile he gave to people. It was a smile he gave to himself, to steady himself, the way another man might crack his knuckles. "Ms. Vale," Prentice said, "even if what you just said were true, and I'm not conceding that it is, it would be an extraordinary claim to make in a room where you have no way to verify any of it." "I don't need to verify it in this room." "Oh? I already verified it. What I need to do in this room is decide whether you're going to make me prove it out loud." Prentice's mouth opened 1/4 of an inch. That was when Logan pressed the key. The battery speaker on his lap was small. It was not meant for a conference room. It had been designed for a teenager listening to music in a bedroom, but in the silence of that room, it sounded like a siren. What came out of it was Arya's voice. It was Arya's voice, 5 months ago, 3 cities ago, in an apartment she had thought was safe, saying to a wall, "I can't do this, I can't. It was a terrible thing to hear. It was a woman at the bottom of a thing. It was exactly the clip they had meant to play for her at this table, in this meeting, at this hour, as leverage. It was their own ammunition coming back at them from the wrong end of the gun. Arya did not look at the speaker. She kept her eyes on Colin Prentice, and she said, with the audio still playing behind her, "This is one of the files you were about to produce. It was pulled from your own server rack, at your own data center, routed through the vendor agreement your firm's IT subsidiary signed with this building. It was captured by a surveillance package installed on the building's electrical by a man named Peter Monk. Every one of you in this room is, at this moment, committing a felony. Every one of you is being recorded on your own system doing it." The man against the back wall, the one whose name Bevan had never gotten, started to move. He took his hand out of his jacket. What came out with it was not a gun. It was a small black device, rectangular, about the size of a deck of cards, with a short, stubby antenna. Logan's brain was slow to understand what it was, but his hands understood it before his head did. It was a jammer. He was going to jam the speaker, the laptop, the phones, the room. Arya saw it at the same time Logan did. She reached under the table. What she pulled was not quite the right handle. She had been going for the fire alarm. What her fingers found, in her fear and in her speed, was a cable run that ran along the underside of the conference table, a bundle of wires for the teleconference system, and she gripped it and yanked hard. The entire ceiling-mounted camera array at the far end of the room unplugged with a short, dry pop, and the screen on the wall went black. She let go of the bundle and slid her hand 2 inches to the left and found the red handle and pulled it. The fire alarm in the wall screamed. It was louder than the speaker. It was louder than Prentice. It was louder than thought. The overhead lights flared to full and then switched to the emergency strobe. Every magnetic lock in the building released at once, which Logan knew from the briefing Desmond had given him in the stairwell. Every door on every floor was, from that moment, simply a door. A dumb door. A door a person could open by pushing on it. The man with the jammer pressed the button on the device. For a half second, Logan's speaker stuttered and died. The laptop screen went to static. But the fire alarm was not on their network. It kept screaming. And the conference room doors, both of them, the one they had entered through and the one behind Prentice, unlatched audibly. A soft thunk that in any other room would have been inaudible. And in this one, to the 3 men still sitting at the table, sounded like the ground shifting. One of the 3 seated men stood up. "Sit down, Hal," Prentice said, not looking at him. Hal sat down. Prentice was still looking at Arya. "You," he said over the alarm, with a calm that was its own kind of frightening, "are making a significant mistake, Ms. Vale. You have no idea what you have just done." "I know exactly what I've done." "Our firm has resources." "Your firm has a disbarment proceeding, Mr. Prentice. Your firm has a referral to the state attorney general. Your firm has a story in tomorrow morning's paper with your name in the headline. Your firm has a state bar complaint on the desk of every ethics officer in the state. All of those things left our hands 9 minutes ago, and they are scheduled to arrive at their destinations in 6 more, and there is not a phone call you can make that will catch them." "You are not the one with resources anymore, Mr. Prentice. You are the one who did not notice he had stopped being the one with resources about 48 hours ago." Prentice did not answer. He sat very still. The man with the jammer pocketed it. He understood now that jamming something that was already out of the building was nothing but theater, and the other man on the back wall, who had not moved yet, took a step toward Arya. Logan stood up. He did not do anything else. He did not lift his hands. He did not shout. He did not reach for anything. He stood up, and he stepped sideways between the man and Arya's chair. He was not large. He was 5'10" and 162 pounds, and his knee made a sound when he straightened it. And the man he was standing in front of was bigger than him by 20 pounds and 10 years younger. None of that mattered. What mattered was that he had put his body in the line. And doing that, Logan knew, from 6 years of watching men try to walk past a security desk, made a certain kind of aggressor pause. It was not a gun. It was a question. The question was, "Are you willing to put your hands on me in a room that has a camera in the ceiling and a fire alarm going off and a woman loudly announcing that everything you do is being recorded?" The man paused. That was all Logan needed. One pause. "Sit down," Logan said. It came out quieter than the alarm. The man heard him anyway. "Sit down against that wall and put your hands where I can see them and wait. It's over. Sit down." The man looked at Prentice. Prentice did not look back. The man sat down against the wall. And then, for a stretch of seconds that Logan would later remember as much longer than it actually was, nothing happened in the conference room at all. The alarm screamed, the strobe flashed, the 6 men and the 1 woman in Logan Reed sat or stood where they were, and no one spoke, because no one had anything left to say that would change what was already moving through the building and out of the building and into the hands of people who had, 4 hours ago, not known any of this existed, and who now would not be able to pretend they did not know. It took the police 4 minutes and 11 seconds to reach the 54th floor. Logan knew, later, that it had been 4 minutes and 11 seconds because the building's fire system logged the alarm at 3:13 and 41 seconds, and the first radio transmission from the responding sergeant logged at 3:17 and 52 seconds. In the room, it did not feel like 4 minutes. It felt like one long minute, and then a series of very small ones. Prentice sat with his hands folded on top of the manila folder. The man against the back wall who had started to come forward sat with his hands on his knees, palms up, which Logan read as experience. He had been in rooms like this before and knew what to do with his hands when the alarm was already pulled. The three men at the table did not look at each other. Arya stayed where she was. She kept both hands flat on the table in front of her, near the folder but not touching it. Her face was not calm. Logan would not describe it as calm. It was the face of a person who was holding, with great effort, a thing they had been carrying for 5 months and could not yet put down because the floor was not under it yet. But she did not cry, and she did not waver. And when one of the three seated men tried quietly to slide a hand into his jacket pocket, Arya said without raising her voice, "Don't." And the man took his hand out of the pocket and put it back on the table. Logan stayed standing. He did not move from between the wall man and Arya's chair until the first uniformed officer came through the front door of the conference room with his hand on his holster and his partner 2 steps behind him. "Building security," Logan said. He held up both empty hands. "My ID is in my back pocket. The woman at the end of the table is Arya Vale. She's the one who pulled the alarm. She pulled it because these men were in the commission of a felony and she needed the doors unlocked to end it safely. Everyone in this room is going to cooperate." The officer looked at him. He was maybe 40, tired eyes, a name tape that read Boyer. "Sir," Boyer said, "I need you to step away from the table and keep your hands where I can see them." "Yes, sir." Logan stepped away from the table. He kept his hands visible. Boyer's partner, a woman with cornrows and a small tattoo at the base of her neck whose name tape read Okoro, moved along the far wall, watching the seated men. A third and fourth officer came in behind them. The room got very crowded, very fast. "Ma'am," Boyer said to Arya, "are you injured?" "No." "Are any of these men armed?" The man against the wall was carrying a signal jammer. "It's in his inside jacket pocket. I don't know if he has anything else. I would assume yes." Boyer looked at the man against the wall. The man against the wall, without being asked, lifted his arms out to the sides, slowly, palms forward, and said, "Right side inside pocket. That's all I have on me." Okoro took the jammer. She also took, from the man's right hip, a small collapsible baton he had not mentioned. She did not comment on the not mentioning. She simply put the baton on the far end of the table and went on to the next man. "Ma'am," Boyer said to Arya, "can you walk me through what happened here?" "I can. It's going to take about 45 minutes, Sergeant, and I would rather not do it in front of these gentlemen. I have prepared a 12-page statement describing the operation. It is in my office, 2 floors down. I have also sent, 9 minutes ago, copies of all supporting evidence to the State Attorney General's office, the District Attorney's office, the State Bar, and a reporter at the Wen Hua Lin column. Those emails should have delivered 4 minutes ago. I suggest you verify with your dispatch before any of these men makes a phone call, because the moment they make a phone call, their firm will attempt to get ahead of this. They will not succeed, but they will try." Boyer looked at her for a long moment. He was, Logan could see, a man who had come up expecting to deal with a fire. He had found instead a large corporate crime being served to him on a conference room table by a young woman who had prepared for this meeting more thoroughly than he had prepared for his sergeant's exam. He adjusted. It took him about 3 seconds. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to separate everyone in this room. Officer Okoro is going to take you and your counsel down to your office to retrieve your statement. Everyone else is staying here until a detective arrives." "Mr. Prentice, is it?" "Call in Prentice." "Mr. Prentice, I'm going to ask you to stand up and put your hands on the table. You are not under arrest at this time. You're being detained pending investigation of what looks to me, in my professional opinion, like the beginning of a long afternoon. Does that language track for you?" "It tracks." "Outstanding." Prentice stood. He put his hands on the table. He was, Logan noticed, still entirely calm. His calm was not the calm of a man who did not understand what was happening. It was the calm of a man who had been in this kind of room before, on this side of it, and who knew that the next 24 hours were going to be brutal, but that his firm had a playbook for brutal. He was already, Logan could see, 3 moves into that playbook in his head. It was not going to matter, but he didn't know that yet. Okoro walked Arya and Logan to the freight elevator. The alarm had stopped. The building's PA was now calmly instructing occupants that the alarm had been a controlled event and that they could return to their floors. 2 floors down, on 52, Arya unlocked 5202 and retrieved, from a drawer Logan had not noticed, a blue folder of printed pages and a small red drive. "Everything's duplicated to the drive," she said, handing both to Okoro. "The folder is my statement. The drive is the underlying files, install logs, packet captures, directory listings, and the audio index. I have not, and will not, play the audio files for any investigator without a court-appointed advocate present, because they are of me, and they are not appropriate. The index will tell you what they are. The files can be retrieved by warrant from their own server. Their server is at the IP address on the first page of the blue folder. The data center is in a state where, I believe, your department has a mutual aid arrangement with the local field office." Okoro took the folder and the drive. "Ma'am, are you a lawyer?" "No." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I'm an engineer. I had 5 months to learn things." Okoro looked at her. "Ma'am," she said, "I have been doing this for 11 years, and that is one of the cleanest handoffs I have ever received. I need you to understand that if every piece of this holds up, your name is going to be on the front of this case whether you want it there or not. I need you to be ready for that." "I'm ready for it." "Are you?" Arya thought about it, and then, for the first time since Logan had known her, she looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with adrenaline. She looked like a 26-year-old woman who had just spent 5 months running and 3 weeks barricaded in a top-floor office, and the last 48 hours planning a confrontation she had not believed she would survive, and who was now being told by a woman with cornrows and a kind tattoo that the next piece of her life was going to be about standing in front of cameras. "I'll be ready," Arya said, "by tomorrow." "That works?" Okoro turned to Logan. "Sir." "Yes, ma'am." "You were the one who stood up." "Yes, ma'am." "The one from the wall?" "Yes, ma'am." "You did that without a weapon?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" He thought about his answer. "Because he was going to put his hands on her," he said, "and I was closer." Okoro looked at him for a second. "Go pick up your kid," she said. "Detective's going to want you tomorrow morning downtown, but not tonight. Tonight you go home, you hug your kid, you sleep 8 hours, and you come in at 9 with your phone, your laptop, and anything you saved before any of this started. Don't delete anything. Don't post anything. Don't call a reporter. You understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "And Mr. Reed?" "Yes." That was a hell of a thing. She turned and walked back to the elevator with the folder and the drive, and she left Logan standing in the hallway of the 52nd floor with Arya Vale, and the alarm silence was still ringing in his ears a little, and the low hum of the building's regular life had come back under it, and he did not know what to say. Arya said it for him. "Call your sister." He took out his phone. He looked at the clock on the screen. 3:41. It was Thursday at 3:41 in the afternoon, and the world he had walked into at 2:45 was a different world than the one he was standing in now, and he had not even registered yet that the difference had occurred. He called Rosa. She picked up on the first ring. "Logan." "It's over, Roz." He heard, on the other end, a sound he had not heard from Rosa Beltran since her husband's funeral 8 years ago. A short, hard breath, the kind people make when they have been holding something down with their whole body and are allowed, finally, to let it rise. She did not say anything for a second. "Logan." "It's over, Roz. Don't pack. Bring her home tomorrow morning. I'll come get her." "Is she safe?" "She's safe. Are you safe?" "I'm safe, Roz." "Logan, are you—" "I'm okay, Rose. I'm going to sit down now. I love you. Tell her Daddy's coming for her in the morning, and we're going to the diner for pancakes, and she can order whatever she wants, including if she wants the chocolate chip ones that have the whipped cream on top, which I normally tell her are too much sugar. Tell her tomorrow. They're not too much sugar. Tell her tomorrow." I said yes. Rosa was quiet for a second. "I'll tell her," Rosa said. She hung up. Logan put the phone back in his pocket. He looked at Arya. She was leaning against the doorframe of 5202, the same doorframe she had leaned her forehead against yesterday evening when she told him she had wanted to throw up. She was not leaning her forehead on it now. She was standing upright, against it, with her arms crossed over her chest, The way a person crosses their arms when they are afraid that if they uncross them, they are going to start shaking. Arya. Yes. You did it. We did it. Arya. Yes, Logan. You did it. I was a body in a chair. You did it. You planned it. You kept your voice steady. You said the line. When the jammer came out, you pulled a different handle, and then you pulled the right handle, and you did not flinch. You did it. She looked at him. Her eyes had the wet at the edges now, the wet that had not come out during the meeting or during Okoro's questions, or at any point in the 14 hours that had led up to them walking into that conference room. It came now. It came in the hallway on the 52nd floor, with her arms crossed over her chest and her back against her own doorframe, and the alarm silence ringing softly in the air. She did not cry. She just let the wet sit at the edges and breathe through her nose, and after a second she said, "Go home, Logan." "I will. Your daughter is waiting." "I know. I'll be here tomorrow morning. When the detectives come, I'll be here." "I know you will. Go home." He went. He took the elevator down. The lobby, when he walked into it, was full of people who did not know anything yet. Tenants coming back from the street after the alarm, a small crowd around the security desk, asking Bevan questions Bevan did not have answers to. 2 firefighters making a slow circuit to confirm there was no actual fire. Logan walked past all of them, with his laptop bag over one shoulder and his personal phone in his hand, and he went out through the revolving door, and he stood on the sidewalk in the late afternoon October light, and he tipped his head back and looked up at the building. 52 floors, the window on the top floor was empty. She was not at the window. She was in the hallway. She was in the office. She was somewhere in there, making the next call, writing the next statement, planning the next day, which would be harder than this one in different ways. He put his hand on the side of his jacket and felt, through the fabric, the small bump of the thumb drive still in the inside pocket. The one he had copied at 4 in the morning the day before, which he would turn over to a detective in the morning, which would be, by this time next week, marked as Exhibit 4 in a sealed indictment, which he would not know about for 6 months. He turned. He walked 3 blocks west to the subway. He did not take his uniform shirt off because he was not on shift anyway, and because he had not remembered he was wearing it. He rode the train to Rosa's stop, not his own. He could not wait until tomorrow. He was not going to wait until tomorrow. He was going to walk up 4 flights of stairs to his sister-in-law's apartment, and he was going to knock on the door, and a 6-year-old girl was going to open it with a plate in her hand or a plastic giraffe in her fist, or nothing at all. And he was going to kneel down, and he was going to press his forehead against hers for exactly 1 second. That was his rule. That had always been her rule, but tonight it was going to be his. He got to her building at 4:52. He climbed the stairs. He knocked. Rosa opened the door with a dish towel in her hand. She did not say anything. She stepped aside. Logan walked in, and Maddie was on the floor in front of the television with Bruno the dog asleep on her feet, and she did not see him for a full 2 seconds because she was watching a cartoon, and then she saw him. And her face did the thing her face did, and she got up slowly like she did not want to disturb the dog, and she walked over to him without running, because something in her 6-year-old understanding of the moment told her it was not a running moment, and she stopped in front of him, and she looked up at him, and she waited. He knelt down. He pressed his forehead against hers. 1 second, no more, no less. "Hi, Mads." "Hi, Daddy. I missed you." "I missed you too." That was all she said about it. She took his hand and led him back to the rug and sat him down and explained very seriously that the giraffe had been demoted from parade leader because the giraffe had been rude to the elephant, and a badger was now in charge. And did he have any opinions on the matter? He said he trusted her judgment. She nodded and went back to the parade. He sat on Rosa's floor in his uniform shirt and watched his daughter play. And after a while, Rosa brought him a plate of something warm that he ate without tasting. And after a longer while, Maddie climbed into his lap and fell asleep there. And he sat holding her with his chin on the top of her head, and he did not move for a long time. 6 months later, on a Tuesday morning in April, Colin Prentice was sentenced to 61 months in a federal facility for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and violations of the state wiretapping statute. Peter Monk cooperated and got 18. Halverson Dre Technical Services dissolved. The parent firm paid a settlement that was reported in 3 papers and whispered about in a dozen more. 11 inventors, in 11 cities, got notices from a special master appointed by a federal judge that their patents were being returned. Two of them called Arya. Neither of them found her. She had gone somewhere quiet. She had kept her word about that. Logan did not work security anymore. Arya had 2 weeks after the meeting sat at a diner booth across from him and made an offer, and he had asked for 3 days to think. And he had talked to Maddie about it on the swings at the park behind her school, at her height, in words she could hold. And Maddie had said, "Does it mean you would sleep at night, Dad?" And he had said, "Yes, Mads. It means I would sleep at night." And she had said, "Then do it." And he had. He ran operations now for a small nonprofit Arya had funded and stepped away from, a thing that helped independent inventors hold on to their work when firms like the one that had tried to eat her came around. He did not understand all of the technical parts. He did not need to. He understood the parts where a person sat across a table from someone bigger than them and tried to decide whether to sign. Those parts he knew. Maddie was 7 now. She still drew fish. She had added whales to her repertoire. On Logan's desk at the new office, in a frame Rosa had bought him, was a blue minnow on a piece of construction paper that said, in Maddie's careful handwriting, "From the artist." He thought, sometimes, on the subway home, about what he had almost not done. About the morning he had poured bad coffee from a pot that had been sitting out since the day shift, and a young woman with a duffel bag had walked into his lobby, and he had almost let her walk past. About the version of his life in which he had done that, in which he had filed the paperwork, sent her upstairs, and forgotten her name by the end of the week. Arya would have signed. The firm would have moved on to the next inventor in the next city. Logan would still be at the desk. Maddie would still be at kindergarten. The ceiling above the sink would still be flickering. It would not have been a bad life. That was the thing that stayed with him. It would not have been a bad life. It would have been a tired one, and a small one, and one he would have kept doing out of the quiet conviction that small, tired lives were what people like him were for. What he had learned, instead, was that the thing he had been told about himself, that he was a man who stood behind a desk and watched other people's hallways, was not a fact. It was a habit. And habits could be broken by a single decision made at 6:11 in the morning on a day he had not known was important, to not look away from a bruise on a stranger's neck. He did not think of himself as a hero. He did not think Arya was a hero either. Heroes, in his understanding, were the people in other people's stories, the ones with the clean jawlines and the easy choices. He and Arya had been two tired people in a bad room who had, between them, made a plan that should not have worked and then worked anyway, partly because they had done the work, and partly because they had gotten lucky, and the luck was a part he was careful never to forget. Other people had not gotten the luck. Other people had signed. He thought about them often. What he took from it, the one thing, the thing he said to Maddie once, years later, when she was old enough to ask, was this: "You do not have to be brave. You only have to not look away." Bravery shows up, if it shows up at all, after. It shows up because you decided, one time, early, before you knew what you were deciding, to see the person in front of you. Everything else follows from that. You do not even have to believe you can help them. You only have to believe that they are there. Maddie, 13 at the time, rolled her eyes at him because she was 13. Then, later that night, she came back into the kitchen while he was doing dishes and pressed her forehead against his for exactly 1 second. No more, no less. That was her rule. It had always been her rule. And on a quiet Tuesday night, in a small apartment that was not a 52nd floor or a conference room or a stairwell with no camera, a man who had once poured a cup of bad coffee and decided, almost by accident, to become a different kind of man, stood at his sink with a plate in his hand and understood, finally, that he was home.